This is the plaintiff, Carleen Turpin. She says her younger brother got mad at her and started banging on the floor of the room above hers, and it damaged her ceiling. Her brother needs to learn how to control his temper tantrums, and he needs to reimburse her the $2,381.23 worth of damages. This is the defendant, Sean Turpin. He says he was moving some furniture for his mom, and his sister got mad at him, called the cops, and had him kicked out of the house they once shared. Now, she's trying to steal the house from their mother, who has dementia, and he's not about to let that happen. And that's what this lawsuit's really about. He's accused of squabbling with his sister. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $5,000 for emotional distress.
All parties, please raise your right hand. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Williams presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Carleen Turpin, you are suing your brother Sean Turpin for damaging the ceilings, $2,381. You are counterclaiming against her $5,000 for emotional distress. What is going on between you two? Let's start with you, Carleen.
Okay. Well, I own a two-family home. My mother lives in the upstairs apartment. I live in the first floor apartment.
How long have you owned that home? How long has it been in your name?
In my name since 2016.
Okay. And Mr. Turpin, did this home used to be your mother's?
Yes, the house was in my mother's name. And
for
it's
how long?
No longer in my mother's name. Since I can remember. I don't even think it's been 4 years since her name has been in it. Been on it.
And there appears to be some kind of dispute between you all regarding who should be owning that house?
Yes, it is a dispute because my father, my mother, my sister helped pay for the house. Now, it's like a family house. We spent a lot of time in the house. My brother was married, raised his kids in that house. My son, which is 22 now, practically was raised up in that house. And it's been in my mother's name. Lately, my mother, she has like Alzheimer's, a hard time remembering, but she's not getting her diagnosed. She's just saying, she can't remember anything. My mother doesn't receive any mail. She doesn't know what's going on anymore. So she's taking advantage of her money, her finances, not only her finances, but with the house and everything else included. So I would really like to put a stop to that. And I'm proceeding on other courts to try to get some help for her.
Where do you have, you have something filed in another court?
No, not yet.
Okay. So, Ms. Turpin, what happened here that you're seeking $2,300 in damages?
On April 7th, I was going to bed around 9 o'clock. I go check up on my mother upstairs to make sure she's okay before I go to bed. And his son, Sean's son, my nephew, and two nieces are in the bedroom smoking marijuana again. So I said to them how disrespectful they're being. I told Sean, he shrugs his shoulder, like, what do you want me to do? So normally I would shut off the Wi-Fi and the kids would leave. They're not kids, they're young adults. They would leave because no Wi-Fi, nothing to do. So I shut off the Wi-Fi, I go to bed. My phone is ringing, Sean is calling me, I'm ignoring him. Next thing I know, I hear this banging above my head.
Okay, here's what I'm trying to figure out. If this is your house and you and your brother are in this horrible situation where you're at odds like this, if this is your house, why is he living there?
He won't leave. And
why wouldn't you go to court and evict him and say, hey, this is my house, I don't want him here?
I'm in the process of doing that
How
now.
long have you been in the process of doing that? According to you, the house has been in your name for 5 years. So if it's been in your name for 5 years, it doesn't take 5 years to file an eviction.
The first notice I gave was in 2017.
Okay. Right. So why haven't you already evicted him if you're the owner of the house?
My mother begged me not to.
Okay.
So I didn't proceed in 2017, even though it was her idea in the first place. So then everything was doing okay. He was trying to help me out with mom and stuff. But this was the epitome of what happened.
Okay.
When he
all right. So it's
had
April
this temper
7th,
tantrum.
and you've told me what led up to this. You turn off the Wi-Fi, and then what happens? He starts calling you, and you're not answering.
I'm not answering. And then he's banging. I don't know what he was banging with because, of course, I'm downstairs in my bed. He's banging with something so hard that my ceiling, and at first I didn't know what it was. It was just the ceiling, boom, boom, and the ceiling is shaking and the fan is shaking. So I go running upstairs to see what it is. And he's coming out of my mother's room. And my mother is standing there in the doorway just shaking. I said, what's going on? What was that? And she's just said, he's crazy, he's crazy. I said, what are you doing? He says, turn the Wi-Fi back on. I said, you're tearing up my house and you're talking about some Wi-Fi? Are you crazy? I'm coming back downstairs. He starts doing it again. I said, I'm calling the police.
What is he doing it with?
I wasn't up there. I couldn't tell you what he was using. I could not tell you.
But you know he was using something?
It had to be because it was quick succession and it was really heavy. Whatever it was heavy enough to shake the whole ceiling. I mean, plaster was falling down off the ceiling.
Okay, go on.
So I called the police. They come about 35 minutes later. They took my report. I said, will you go up there and talk to him because he's threatened to tear up my whole house? They said, no, we can't do that. Here's the paperwork. You know, go to family court. So that's what I did. I went to family court the next day.
And you got a restraining order?
Yes.
To remove him from the house?
Yes.
And then what happened with that's a temporary, and then there's a hearing for the permanent. What ended up happening at the hearing for the permanent?
We haven't had the permanent hearing yet.
But he's back in the house, isn't he?
He is.
How did he get back in the house?
They did an emergency hearing for after he was out for like a week, and we had another hearing to see if he can come back in, and the judge let him come back in because she said he's not a danger to me. He didn't make a threat to me. He just made a threat to the home.
Well, if I may speak.
What did you want to say, Mr. Turpin?
They let me back into the house because she was incredible. She made all kind of accusations against me, talking about I was physically, she was scared of me. She said my mother was scared of me. She made all kind of accusations. And the judge didn't find her credible at all. That's why they let me back into the house.
Do you have proof of that?
I mean, I won my case. They let me back into the house.
Yeah, but sometimes you win your case for a reason other than the other person's credibility.
Well, it's still not finished. And during the case, the family court case, she was she would go. It was virtual, just by phone. She would go into the room and coach my mother, and the judge had to warn her and tell her, "You're not supposed to be in the room with your mother." And she had to leave out the room because she was telling my mother what to say on the phone during the case.
How old is your mother, Mr. Turpin?
She's 78. And the worst part about it, she hasn't been diagnosed. She doesn't take her to get a diagnosed.
Why don't you take her to get her diagnosed?
And Alzheimer's.
Why don't you take her?
Well, I tried. She wouldn't go. To get her out the house is very difficult. To get her to even go to the doctor, period. Once she finds out that she's there to see if she has dementia, she has a fit.
Well, you don't tell her that.
Right,
with all due respect, you just kind of take her to the doctor and let the doctor do their thing. But, it's not only on her to take her to the doctor. She's your mother. You can take her to the doctor.
Right.
So, she hasn't even taken her to get a diagnosis. Go take her yourself to get a diagnosis.
But the reason why I'm bringing that up is easy for her to say, to forge her name and say, she's in sound mind and body, and to do all the stuff that she's doing with the mail. That's the purpose of her not getting any mail. My mother doesn't see any of her mail. My mother can read. She's still,
Okay, but there are places you can go if you think that somebody's taking advantage of someone who's not of sound mind. You file a complaint, and you have independent people get in the middle of your business and try to figure out who's right and who's wrong. So that there's places you can go to file that kind of complaint. You're working on that, I guess.
Right.
That's what you meant when you said I'm pursuing other courtrooms. All right, I understand that. Let's talk about what's going on here, because nothing makes me sadder than to think, your mother worked hard to get this house, and then now it's the source of her children hating each other. Isn't that something? Should be like a happy thing.
Good memories.
And then instead, good memories, and then instead, it's the source of family strife and,
Yes.
In any event, show me how he has damaged your house to the tune of the amount that you're asking for, Ms. Turpin. What would you like me to look at?
Yeah, the beams were broken.
All right, so let's look at the pictures that you're talking about. This is your room, right?
Yes.
And then they've taken down the drywall of your room because let's look at the other pictures first here, because these come later in time. You've shown me these pictures where there's all these holes in your ceiling. And according to you, these holes are made by him stomping on the floor above you, right? Or hitting it with a dumbbell or something.
Something like that, yes.
Okay. How many times has he done that? Was that just on this one occasion in April?
Yes, he did it like throughout the night.
Just that one time. And that, according to you, has broken the beams.
Immediately, as soon as he did it, you can hear every time it was banging, you can hear cracking. You could hear the ceiling fan was about to come down, and all the little pieces of
raining drywall
were coming down. Right,
snowing
off those
drywall.
Screws, right.
Okay, well, you happen to have a video because you took a video when it happened, right?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Look at these holes in the ceiling. Tearing up my house. I'm taking all this to court for evidence. You keep tearing up my house. You're going to have to pay for every single repair. I'm not the one tearing up somebody's property.
Why are you turning the wife off for, Connie? For what? For what? For what?
Let me ask you a question. What were you doing up there, Mr. Turpin?
I just moved the dresser around. There was no damage. I took a picture of the floor.
I'm sorry, the sounds I was hearing, were you moving furniture for your mother?
No, that wasn't the sound. What you heard her taking a broom handle and sticking it and hitting the ceiling with it. That's why those little circular perfect holes are in the ceiling.
We'll talk about that in a second. I want to know what you were doing. That was my question, not what she was doing. What were you doing?
I just moved over a dresser.
You did not move over a dresser, Mr. Turpin. You are lying. You were banging on the ground with your feet, probably. You were stomping to bother her right on top.
Well,
that's what you were doing.
There was a little noise in there.
I'm sorry.
Like I said,
were you doing what I say you were doing?
I wasn't stomping.
No?
And I wasn't stomping on the floor.
Maybe sounds like stomping on the floor. You're stomping up there. I mean, it's obvious what you're doing. Now let's talk to you. Okay, according to you, you have proof that his stomping caused problems with the beams. And you sent some pictures, Ms. Turpin, for me to see the problem with the beams. Let's look at the pictures that you sent me. Okay, so show me how these pictures of beams prove that he, from above, damaged your beams. Because I gotta tell you, when I'm looking at this, okay, and I'm zooming in, I'm seeing the damage from the bottom of the beam, which would be, in fact, consistent with the holes that I'm looking at previously, which he says are, in fact, pictures of you with the broom smacking up at the ceiling, and it's consistent with the fact that when you are videotaping him stomping, all those holes are already there. They're already in the video. They're not happening in front of me. They're already there. So just in case either of you think I'm an idiot, he's stomping because he's mad, and you're hitting the broom up because you're mad he's stomping. That's what's happening. But show me how any of these beam pictures show anything other than what I have just said, because when I look at these beam pictures, all of the damage to any beams there is from the bottom. It's not from the top.
Okay. Okay. Slide to the next picture.
Well, let's talk about this one. How did these holes get made there on those beams?
That I don't know.
Oh, I do.
I think it's from the screws.
No,
it's probably no.
I had already looked at that and thought that before he even mentioned a broom. But when I'm looking at the beams and all the damage is from the bottom, and there's exactly little holes like this. What else do you think that common sense tells us that this stuff is? This one shows that
That's
that
the
a
middle of the
stick
room where the
was
ceiling
pushed
fan
up.
goes.
This is exactly what this picture shows. I am ruling
Your
in
Honor,
this case
Your
on your
Honor.
claim against your brother in favor of your brother.
Honor,
on your counterclaim
Your
for
Honor,
emotional distress.
Your Honor, that's
let
where
me
the
tell you
ceiling
something.
fan
Turn her
goes.
mic off. I don't want to hear her talking over me anymore. That is the only benefit of COVID and remote court. Now you listen to me, and I know she can still listen to me. Mr. Turpin, are you listening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not an idiot. I know what is going on. What is going on is that the two of you are making your mother's last years on this planet miserable. Why you're dragging this out is beyond me. Go to court and do whatever it is you think you need to do to solve it. If you think she's abusing of someone who's doesn't have all their faculties in terms of abusing financially, not in some other way, that's what you're accusing her of, then go prove it or shut up. But it's her, according to her, it's her house. So you're going to have to prove that she stole it from your mother when she wasn't in sound mind if you want to get there. So just do it. And you, Miss Turpin, if it's your house and you don't want him living there and we want a little piece for your mother, then go ahead and evict him. And then we'll get a little piece for your mother and let all the chips fall where they may. Instead, it's War of the Roses between the two Turpins. And you're just making your mother miserable. If you put half the energy into making your own money and buying your own house, your mother wouldn't be miserable in her last days. Not that 78 should be her last days, but I don't know what kind of health she's in. It's horrifying to me. On your counterclaim against her for emotional distress, I think you dish it out just as well as you take it. So 0 to you too. Good luck.
So in this brother-sister dispute, lawsuit and countersuit, it ends up in a 0-0 tie. Nobody gets anything. So let's talk to the plaintiff first. Ms. Turpin, you filed the lawsuit against your brother. You did not prevail. What are you thinking?
The eviction is in process, so we'll see where that goes. In the meantime, keep us in prayer.
Okay, very good. All right, let me talk to your brother. Sean, let me ask you, do you think this is going to end the problems you're having with your sister or not? You're about to be evicted, right?
Well, whatever she does or whatever she's trying to do, it's not right. And she's going about it the wrong way. It's just like what Judge Milian said. She's trying to do stuff, cause the damage herself and trying to say I did it.
All right, well, good luck to you. I hope you work it out for your mother's sake.
Doug, it's interesting that when people sue, everybody thinks relationships are automatically over forever. That is not always the case. Sometimes you have two people, even family members like here, where, there's an honest disagreement perhaps, and you can go into court and get a third party to listen dispassionately and make a decision. That doesn't mean the relationship has to be over.
I had to have a wall fixed in my apartment, and it's going on 3 weeks, and it's still not finished. They had to fix the wall in the bedroom before, and that one only took a week. Should I withhold next month's rent until the work gets done?
Hey, 0 to 60 in a minute, huh?
Yeah,
less than.
Everybody goes.
I don't know what they're talking. Yeah, full out. Certainly a tenant has a right to withhold rent for a repair that is affecting the quality of your life. When you say repair a wall, what are you talking about? A little hole in the wall?
That's probably a cosmetic thing.
If it's a cosmetic thing,
especially if they moved in already before that.
If it's a cosmetic thing, I would not advise
withholding
the rent.
Right
You're
away.
causing all kinds of problems and creating all kinds of animosity in a situation that doesn't warrant it yet. Now, if there's some reason why the repair of the wall is structural in some way and it has to do with your safety, then the idea behind withholding the rent is not that you're punishing them. It's that you're going to need to pay for the repair yourself because it's so imminent and important and has to happen right now.
And those things are the big plumbing, electrical,
something that affects
HVAC things, or doors that are broken, windows that are broken, where people can come in, where your own safety's endangered potentially, or you just can't.
But the idea is you take that rent money you would have paid them and you do the repair. It doesn't sound like this person had that in mind at all.
No. Come on, you got to get along. You want to get along with your landlord. You may need a favor from him or her on something next month, and all of a sudden, boom, you're just going to go, like you said, from 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 and go, no rent for you.